Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me on another episode of the Estrella Podcast. My name is Danielle Miranda, and before I get started in introducing today's great guest, if you would like to learn more about the Estrella platform that is getting ready to launch, please visit estrella.chat. You'll learn everything you need to know about the launching date that's happening and all of the features that are going to be on the new platform coming soon. Now, for today's guest, I'm really excited to interview and introduce to all of you psychic medium Jane Morton. Hi, Jane. How are you?
Hi, Danielle. Hi, everyone. I'm good, thank you.
I love your accent. I always ask this when I get an accent on the show. Where are you located?
So I am in England, and I am in a place called Portsmouth, which is right down the bottom of England. It's what we call down south, and it's where all the ships come in. All the Navy boats used to
Oh,
come
that's
in.
neat.
So yeah.
That is awesome. Interesting enough, here in Ohio, we also have a Portsmouth, and it is south of Columbus,
Yeah.
where I currently live. So I guess Portsmouth is quite popular around the world.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really excited because just before we started this interview, I had asked you what are some of the other amazing things that you specialize in. And it's not just being a psychic medium that is your gift, you do other cool, really interesting things as well. Would you expound on the things that you do?
Yeah. So obviously, psychic medium is what I call myself because it's how I sort of started. But I am a teacher and a practitioner in a healing modality called Rahani Celestial Healing. I'm also an ambassador in that, so I obviously got that title for my work and my support that I give others in the modality. I'm also a spirit release practitioner, which we work remotely and we work worldwide. I actually train with a lot of Americans face to face in an in-house course, and it's becoming bigger and bigger since it got launched, and it's really interesting work. A little bit quirky. I don't know if we're going to talk about that a bit later on. It's very hard to explain it, but I will try and explain it later on. I'm
Now,
also a holistic therapist, so I do some holistic work in between all that. But most of the things I do is spiritual based or well-being based.
that is amazing. So you do a lot. You have a vast
Yeah,
just palette for just all of these different things that you're doing. One of the things you had mentioned that I'm very interested in learning more about and forgive me if I mispronounce this, it's Rahani. Is
yeah,
that correct?
Rihani, yeah.
Where does that name come from, and what is it in detail?
So Rouhani came to light around 2002. I think it was 2002. A lady in England, in Essex in England, was channeled by Melchizedek and was given this healing modality to bring forward to everyone. It's actually, if you separate it, Ra is the sun god, and Hani is the Hebrew name for the girl of fall of grace, meaning try and think how they say that. Actually, I should have got that round the right way, but it was put together, and they believe that it was actually created many years ago and come from the planets in the universe. So it was taken away, probably because of the way the human race was destroying itself. And when she got channeled, she was explained how they wanted her to gradually bring it back in. It works on a fifth dimensional basis because we all as humans walk around in a 3D sort of world.
Mm-hmm.
And Reiki is not something I've trained in, so I don't know a lot about Reiki, but Reiki was obviously centuries back and it was on a 3D basis because humans weren't there. So Rahani's just raised that level a little bit more. We work with all the ascended masters and all the seven main archangels. And then we have celestial pink angels, hence the celestial bit in between it. But it's a very simple and very gentle healing practice. I love it, hence why I teach it. There's no fluffing about with it. It's quite a straightforward thing. You're not doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things in the background, scaring your clients. I love teaching it because my students say because I'm down to earth and practical with it, but I love teaching it because I love to see people going forward and using it. So yeah, I've been the teacher, I think 5 years, and I actually became a practitioner in 2015.
That is really neat. So it sounds like raw honey is an elevated, advanced version of Reiki, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the background of how it was channeled and how it became now a healing modality is accredited as well. So has obviously come from this lady called Carol Stacey being channeled. But when there was more information coming out, it showed it had been around centuries and light years of work go between the Milky Way and Sirius and Palladian. So there was a lot of stuff in the background. There is connections to Atlantis, the fallen city. Again, it depends whether you're spiritual or a believer. Not all spiritual people believe everything anyway. And some people are still very skeptical about Atlantis, if it existed. But there's lots of connections. So Reiki, when it was created by the Buddha, I can't remember his name, bless him, came from the earth, and Rahani is coming from the universe. So we're pulling down those resources, yeah.
So how do you know, Jane, exactly when you are channeling, did you say the fifth dimension? How do you know when you're doing that?
So interesting one, because I think when I became a practitioner, I really still wasn't quite sure how it worked, how it was. And when I started actually doing it as a practice and charging clients, people would go, oh God, that was really amazing. I feel so more relaxed and all that. And I'd be thinking, well, I don't know what I've done. But as a medium, back then I was only more psychic. I had sort of shut my mediumistic skills down. But looking back, when you are healing, you are channeling. So it's not you doing it. You're allowing people to channel through you, hence ascended masters, the archangels. So it's a form of mediumship work because you're allowing somebody to channel. So I had to get my head round that I was actually opening up my mediumship side as well. So when you stop putting yourself up the forefront and thinking you're doing it, yes, you might physically be in the room doing it, and accept that something is channeling that energy through you to help your client. That's when you sort of let all your boundaries down and go with the flow. So for me, when I realised that the guides that I worked with in Rahani as well were actually going to, later down the line, 2 of them were going to become my guides in my trance mediumship. It was a much more relaxing experience and less. It's a hard one to explain though, because if you have a client come and they want healing, but they don't really know why they want healing, and they're not very spiritual, so they don't even want to talk about that. You have to be careful how you word things to clients, because I'm a holistic practitioner. I have to accept that some of my clients come for holistic treatment, complementary treatment, not to be bogged down with spiritual weirdness as people sometimes think it is. So but like I said, it's such a simple healing modality, and most of my clients thankfully have a little snore on the bed. When you hear that little snore, you know that they're relaxed, and that's the most important thing. If they've got 45 minutes out of their day where they finally have relaxed, then you're doing something right.
So in the middle of the session, when you're with a client and you're doing the Rahani, are you the only one that is actually in the fifth dimension, or are you also helping your clients get in the fifth dimension as well?
No, I would say only I would be in the fifth dimension, because the client, like I said, if they're not spiritually evolved, would not be aware of that. They're perfectly safe. Any work I do, I do a protection daily. I protect my space. I cleanse my space. Because of my spirit release work, I'm quite hot on my protection. I have to do a lot more intense cleansing because that's quite serious work. So the space is already cleansed and relaxed. They're there just to, a lot of my clients come with anxiety and very minor mental health issues. That said, I have had some clients with stronger mental health issues. But the whole idea is to try and make them feel relaxed and a little bit at peace. It works really well with people that are struggling with their emotions and their well-being in general. One thing I've always said, I do talks on it for people as well. I've gone to events and done talk. Despite what you read in the Bible or anywhere else, we as healers do not heal to the point where we let people get up and walk when they haven't walked before, broken bones. We are not that sort of healer. We're healing the mind, we're healing the soul. We're not at that stage where we're doing what people believed can be done. And sometimes it's a bit dangerous healing in the wrong hands, whatever the modality is, because some healers believe they can do that. I don't think anyone is at that stage ready to acknowledge that. So we have to be careful. So I'd say the clients are in a 3D state, but they just need some therapy work. And obviously the medium. I mean, not everyone's a medium when they're doing healings. I've taught a lot of people and they're not doing psychic mediumship work. But when you're working in that level, you've hired your vibration, whether you want to accept it or not, because that's part of the attunement to becoming a teacher, a practitioner and a teacher. So,
right. I love that you brought up, Jane, and you weren't afraid to bring it up about how you're very mindful of not only energy exchange, but making sure that, you're being very protective of not only your mental and emotional state, but the state of your client as well. Yeah. And that we have to be careful with not claiming that we can perform certain, acts or do certain things on a client. So I really appreciate your transparency in that, because we're at a point in spirituality where there are a lot of claims being made. There are a lot of things that are quote unquote happening or not happening. And it is creating I would say an energy amongst people where they're not having as much faith and reliance on the spiritual community. And I don't want to see that get tarnished.
Yeah, it's a shame because I'm heading towards my 60th birthday, and I got I've always been interested in psychic work. I had my first tarot cards when I was around 14. But in my day then, you didn't really tell anyone, and I had no support from home. Everyone just thought I was crazy when I used to see people. My first mediumship experience, I was about 5. My mum just told me it was an imaginary friend. So I grew up very secluded in what I knew I was seeing and could do, and just went down the route of being a rebellious teenager and being a teenager. And I think then you didn't talk about spiritual stuff as much unless you were brought up in a family that were very spiritual. Now it is so interesting to see that a lot of my clients are becoming younger and younger, and they are showing a massive interest in the spiritual world and how things are changing. I run a development group every fortnight with another medium, a very good friend and medium. And our group has had all age groups in it, but it's so interesting to see younger people coming through and finally acknowledging what they are feeling and having a safe space to do it. So we are evolving, and more people are becoming aware of their spiritual their path, their journey. But we can't run before we can walk.
Exactly.
And I have encountered too many people that have run away with the idea of what they can and can't do. We're human beings, we are a soul in a human being body. So we're using this body to do this human world. We may dip in and out when we're doing some spiritual work, if we work spiritually, but we must remember we're still only human, and they can switch us off at any time if we overstep the mark. And it's a shame, because there are some excellent people coming through the doors at a younger age now that are opening up and can do some amazing work for people. And then you've got the ones that make a mockery of all spiritual work because you're accused of being a fake, or it's entertainment. I hate the word that it's entertainment. There is nothing entertaining about the work I do, especially my spiritual work. So,
I totally understand that. Yeah.
It's frustrating because we want people to take it seriously and open up, and we don't want someone like a bad apple in the car turning away, making everything bad again. So if anyone had said 20 years ago that I would have been sat doing what I do now and talking about spiritual stuff, I would have laughed, because I was I'm very logical. I'm a Virgo, so I'm very grounded. But I was shutting down my spiritual self, and maybe that was my journey. Trauma actually elevated it and made me step out of my comfort zone and finally sort of take it on board. But yeah, I think we all have a journey, and we mustn't overstep the mark. It's just a shame of those that are making a mockery of it or trying to make money out of it.
I absolutely agree with you, Jane. And you're right. We are becoming more aware and awakened to spirituality. And there is a lot more interest in our younger generations, which is exciting, right? Because they are the future of where spirituality is going to evolve. But at the same time, you're right. We have to be mindful that we're not commercializing it. It's not, like you said, for entertainment or theatrical purposes. And also that we're not making a mockery of it, because it is sacred. It's nothing to play around with. And, you know, we're talking about life-changing modalities when it comes to our evolving in this.
And it is life-changing, because I think people think that I should be rolling around in money and, you know, driving around in flash sports car. But it doesn't make you rich that way. What it does make you rich in is in your way of thinking, your way of trusting. And it doesn't matter what happens now in my life. And I've not had an easy life. And you'd find most people haven't that work in this work, because we have an understanding then when we help others, because we've probably had those situations somewhere along the line. But we are here to evolve and accept our soul. And if you're happy with your soul and how you're doing, that is your abundance. Yes. So now the less I fear less, much less. And some might say it's because of my age. It's not. The things I would have feared and continued fearing, I have less fear on, because I'm more accepting of what is out there, what I know is out there now, where before everything I was scared. As a young mum, I was scared. I was scared for my children, scared for this, scared for that. I now accept that we all had our path written in stone before we came here. And some of our life lessons, as tough as they are, they're there for a reason. And that's the abundance of it, because you start looking at life differently and more relaxed and less stressed.
Yes. What is your take and your thoughts on the idea that we have come here choosing our parents, choosing our path, choosing our setbacks and our triumphs? What is your take on that?
So with Rahani, because we're ascending to 5D and we're bringing those ascended masters and those archangels down to us to work for us, that is a form of ascension. And with ascension, I've studied ascension after that. I've done a course on ascension. And for me, with ascension, we have done that. We are in a group, a Monet group of 8 from our souls, and we sit and decide who we're going to be, what we're going to do, and what we're going to do to each other or to someone else. And then we have another little group that goes to 16. And these are the people that we will always come across, these souls, in any lifetime, which is why you have a familiarity with people, because you're going to constantly be in the life. It goes on and on. You have 24 and so on, but your 8 and your 16 are your core people that are always going to be in each life you come in. In a previous life, because I do trance mediumship and I do the spirit release work, I know in a previous life that my eldest son was actually my father in a previous life. And the reason we can have quite a troubled relationship, a little bit of a love and hate, I mean, he lives with me, so we have to go on with that, but we can rub each other up the wrong way. It's because our roles have reversed. And it is quite fascinating. So for me, I do believe we've our parents chose our life, It is hard. It is hard to accept that you've chosen some of the awful stuff that's happened. And it is hard to accept for the awful things that go on in the world that was chosen. And I do know with other spiritual friends, they don't agree with my way of thinking. But Rahani came from the universe. So I wanted to find out more about the ascension process and how we came about. And I do believe that some of us have come from other planets. And that's why we don't always fit in as a human, because we have a crossover of that planet we may have lived on before. It's fascinating that people think Earth is the only planet with living species on, when there's so much out there.
I've thought the same thing. It's interesting because I used to not even think that, right? Especially if you come from a very religious background, and I know there might be some viewers and listeners that might disagree with me when I say this, but I feel like a part of religion is indoctrination, and it is a form of slavery in a sense. Not in all aspects, but in the experiences I've had with religion, I have felt that it was more indoctrinated. But I have also discovered that as I started to widen my awareness and my knowledge and become more awakened to spirituality, that's when I started to get downloads of truth and of other possibilities. And with that came realizing that there is no possible way we're the only living species.
No.
There are other galaxies, other planets, and I think in a sense it's maybe a little selfish to think that we're the only living species.
But in our, like I said, when you look back at Atlantis and the fall of Atlantis, that was because they knew there was other species and they wanted to try. One part of Atlantis was I'm trying to think what they were. I'm not very hot on that because it's not something I've studied. But you had Atlantis and then you had the other quite well talked about ancient thing. But they were arguing because one believed that they should go and educate the other planets that were less evolved and then be draconian to making them do their rules. And then the other part of them was saying, well, no, they evolve in their own way. And there you go, straight away, a war starts creating. And that's why everything was taken away. And I think it's the same with religion. If we went back to the witchcraft days, someone like me would have been burnt at the stake. And actually, I think I have a few times in past lives. So, but that was all done by the church. The church told people that you must believe in the church and believe in heaven and hell. I don't believe there is a hell. I believe there are demonic forces. There are dark negative energies, but I still believe we all go to the same place because of my ascension belief. Whatever terrible things we've done here, we will all go back and evolve back to our soul level. So to me, there is no heaven and hell. There is just our souls going back to being that soul, which is all being of light. So there's no negativity there. But the church wanted you to follow them. So they made you believe that there was a devil and hell. And that's how they control people. And that's why witchcraft, and when I say witchcraft, I'm an aromatherapist by trade as well. So I would have made potions and oils, and that would have been seen as witchcraft. And I would have been burnt for that, because anything that you were doing that wasn't, consistent to what they wanted you to do would have been deemed as inappropriate. So although I'm not a big church believer, but my eldest has actually just been baptized and I totally supported him in that. I think in this human world, we should do what we want to do. And if it makes us feel good, then fine. No one should have the right to say what's right and what's wrong. Whatever religion you want to follow it. Whatever belief you want to have, follow it. I mean, I work spiritually, but I do not practice spiritualism because that's a totally different thing. And that's another conform to church. And I don't conform to anything. But you must all be kind to each other. And if you start saying, well, this is right and you're wrong, then you're not learning anything. And I hate to burst all their bubbles, but whatever religion or belief you follow, we are all going to the same place.
I agree with that too. Yeah. I would even say, and I don't know what your take is on this, what I've come to find is hell, in a sense, may be the experiences, the hell, the quote unquote, may be the experiences that we're going through. It may be the struggles that we're enduring so that we can overcome, learn, and grow. I really struggle with the idea of people burning in a lake of fire for eternity. I always have, especially when you claim that God is an unconditionally loving God and he forgives immediately. All you have to do is repent. It does not make sense. No. And that's when I started to become awakened to truth. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this to me isn't adding up. And I want to expand my knowledge and I want to figure out what the truth is. And so I agree with everything you're saying. I think instead of people pointing fingers and saying what's right and what's wrong. We need to be pointing those fingers back at us, like Wayne Dyer talks about. And we really need to ask ourselves, am I doing what I need to do? You know, am I showing love? Am I forgiving? Am I setting an example? Am I gossiping or doing these things before I go around, you know, kind of persecuting everybody else? So, Jane, that's so well said. I agree with that.
One of the reasons I did spirit release, I became a spirit release practitioner last May. It's actually a year ago. I became a practitioner. Well, I started the journey. I became qualified beginning of July. Spirit release, people say to me, what is spirit release work? And I said lightheartedly, because I have got a bit of a wicked sense of humour as well, I will say it's modern day exorcism. But it's not exorcism how people believe it from the church. And actually, we have a very big turnover worldwide. I work with a lot of American people. We do a regular Zoom every week with America, Dubai, Canada, Thailand, you name it, because more and more people are joining the academy. But we know there's a waiting list now for people to go and have their house cleansed, or they think there's something in their house, by an actual priest. And we can do that. We can book that in and do that without even going anywhere near them, because we can do it remotely. And that's down to the way it's been now looked at in the modern day world, because things evolve. And even in the old horror films where the priest goes in and shaking the water and all that, and you always see him coming off worse anyway for a bit, that's because we have to evolve with what the world's doing. So we can't stay in the same practice and go, oh, well, yeah, it worked 20, 30 or 300 years ago. Well, it's not working now because there's a lot of negative and unhappy people out there. And to me, how, like you said, how isn't, it isn't a place. It is negative energy. It is possibly attachments, but not from where people think they are from. And sometimes we bring that on ourselves by the way we are. So in my spirit release work, although we call it a clearing, we will clear a person, and we will clear their surroundings around them. It isn't always about an attachment or an implant. It's actually about their mental well-being, because there's something going on emotionally and mentally. It covers so much more, and it's a whole, we have a protocol we follow. It's done in pairs so that we're safe. The medium will go into trance, and the facilitator will ask the questions and write the report up for the client. You do not go past the protocol, because that's going down a rabbit hole, and that's not what we're trying to do. And a good medium that understands her guide when they're trancing, or that, you know, we've got men on the course as well, will trust their guide implicitly to do the work anyway. I've done my clearings and my guides brought me out because it wasn't safe to clear the client. And I trust my guide. I have a main guide, but I have two other guides that come in when it gets a little bit heavy. So it is, spirit release is so important to me now, because the world is getting angry. And like you said, there is still a divide, and there's always going to be a divide, but it's getting worse. And things are being put out there. And what happened 5 years ago, the pandemic, I think, was one of them. And it's affecting people, and it's affecting their choices. And these dark forces, these negative energies, take an opportunity to go, oh, do you know what? I might go and do that. It's not the devil. And it's not anything like that. It's energy, because we're all about energy, and we create dark energy when we're not happy. But we've worked with mental health patients. It was trialed. Terence Palmer, Dr. Terence Palmer, is the person that brought spirit release to light. He's a psychotherapist. Unfortunately, he's passed now. It was trialed on people. It was done on a more of a medical science base, but with a spiritual twist, which is why the mediums are used. So I love that, because I have a logical science mind as well as my spiritual mind. Yes. But the people we have helped with that work is unreal. And as a medium, to go into trance, I do trance mediumship anyway, it is just such an honor to be able to now do something more evolved and to help people that have really struggled and got nowhere because the services, for whatever reason, are not picking up what's wrong with them. So it sort of does relate to that heaven and hell. But like I said, I still don't believe there's a heaven and a hell. But I do believe we can lower our vibration and allow things to happen if we don't stay in our lane.
Right. Jane, how do you know if a client needs a spirit release? What are some signs that you look for when you're working with your client?
So normally the client will come to us and ask us things, but prior to doing the course, as a medium, because we do what we call platform mediumship, and which is probably done in America as well, we will go to an audience, to a venue, be on platform, on stage, and we will have our audience and we will give out messages. And then we will get contacted sometimes saying we think we've got a poltergeist or we think we've got a ghost. I don't believe in ghosts, and I don't agree with paranormal investigations either, because to me, old buildings is about old energy. So of course you're going to disturb stuff. And ghosts, they're either spirit that are trapped or they're spirit that's come back to say hi. And if they're spirit to come back and say hi, they're not going to torment us, are they? So it's a trapped spirit. That's all it is. Someone hasn't crossed over. So we do our platform stuff, and we obviously do our day-to-day tarots. The lady I do platform with is the person I teach the development with. And so sometimes someone will come up to us and tell us things, and we'll go, oh, well, we don't really do that sort of work because we're mediums. We don't declare that we can go in and cleanse a house and remove entities and stuff like that. But when we trained in the spirit release, we realized that actually we can do that now, but we did it from training, understanding and safety. And now if we have a client that comes for a reading, but if you're a good psychic medium, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but if you truly are, and I'm also a psychic counsellor, I work as a psychic spiritual counsellor. So my ethics is to help the client, not to give a reading. I will spot somebody that's a little bit not probably in the right headspace for a tarot reading, and would actually suggest maybe a clearing, because my guide's in my ear almost telling me clearing, clearing, clearing. And now with my psychic counselling work, I actually would prefer them to have a clearing before I start doing the counselling, because I have to look at my own safety. Because the reason we do it remotely is for safety reasons, but if you're in the vicinity of somebody, you're more likely to be attacked yourself from that negative energy. So yeah, it's quite intense work, but we aren't like pushy with it. We won't go, oh, you need a clearing, or I think you've got an attachment. We don't walk around. We are more mindful not to scare people with it. And we may just sort of, have you heard of the work we do? Have you seen? And we do it that way. But yeah, we've had really good feedback from it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What is the difference, Jane, between psychic counseling and regular counseling?
So I trained, my eldest child is 36. When he was around 6 or 7, I trained to be a counsellor. It was very, very new in England then. It wasn't as big as it was out in America then. I got a lot of strange cold shoulders back in the day because they thought I was a weirdo for doing it. But I was intrigued because I always knew I had that side to me where I wanted to help people, but I just never quite, I was a prefect in school. I was a mentor in work. I'm a mentor now for teenagers. I always knew I had this thing to help people. And I thought I'm going to do counselling. And I actually chose mental health, which down the line I never realised would be so close to home, because I do have to deal with a lot of mental health personally with my family. And I did my first year and I went in to do my diploma, but my eldest son had already started to show signs that life was difficult for him. So I ended up as a single parent leaving to take care of him and my daughter at the time. But I never really let it go. And I always felt like I'd failed. So when I started doing my spiritual work, I see a course pop up saying psychic counsellor. And I thought, I didn't like the psychic in front of it, to be honest. And I looked it all out, and it was the same sort of training as what I'd done, but in a more soul level. So I signed up and did the course, got my diploma, got a distinction, and was pleased because I understood the course from doing previous work as a counsellor. So for me, it's deeper, it's soul level. But for me personally, when I work with somebody, it's feet up on my sofa, no couches, it's relaxed environment. It's a 90-minute session initially, and I very rarely have anyone come back. And it's getting to the nitty gritty and giving them some ways to go away and deal with stuff. So for me, it's not 10 sessions, all that, so sessions done, off you go. And it's not, the hours clock in. We're very relaxed. It's all very, counselling used to be very stiff and very formal. I actually gave a talk a couple of years ago, and when I finished talking about it, people come up from the audience and they were trained counsellors, and they said, we came to your talk because we're thinking of crossing from the conventional way of counselling to the holistic way of counselling. So intriguing, even that has taken a turn, and how people are evolving in their conventional work.
Yes.
So it's not a lot of difference. It's how you approach it, really. The difference is the title. Probably not taken as seriously being a psychic counsellor. Some people call it spiritual, but my diploma states psychic counsellor, so I have to sort of put that on my
Yes.
stuff. But yeah, and my readings are very much based on my counselling side. I will read tarot in a much more counsellly way, not in a this is happening, get over it. I'm much more aware of the person's feelings. So it works for me as well.
I love that, because you had just started to answer a question I was going to ask. And that question was, so once a client comes in for that psychic counseling, typically, like you had stated, one session is it. They don't need to come back for another session.
As long as they follow some of the advice I give them, they shouldn't need to come back. And that's the beauty of spirit release as well. We have a protocol that we follow. We write a report up, a very in-depth report, not always everything in it, because some of the stuff we are removing, and especially past life stuff, is not always relevant to how we're going to explain it, because we've got to be mindful of what people read on paper. But we give advice at the end of that report, like I do with my psychic counselling, of how to continue keeping your life on a positive level.
Now, you had stated, Jane, that you have written protocols for your clients. What does a typical protocol look like?
The protocols wrote by, it's the Spirit Release Academy is the official academy that I trained under. They wrote the protocol. The protocol is quite confidential, so I can't obviously discuss the protocol.
Yes.
It is only obviously a certified practitioner would get the protocol to use. The clients don't know the protocol, but the way I've set my reports up in its own way. There's a few pictures and things to make it a little bit more easier. We explain what we've cleared in a very minimalistic way, but we will explain what that was. So if there's negative chords, we will explain what a negative chord is, but then just, like I said, it's really hard to write the details in without scaring somebody.
Right.
But the good thing is I'm doing a clearing tomorrow, and she knows we're doing it at 4:00. And at 4:00, she said, do I have to lay down? I went, no, you just carry on with your day. Most people will go, I knew you'd done it, because within 10 minutes, I suddenly felt so much lighter. They looked at the time and went, oh my God, they're doing, and that's the beauty of it. People can get on with their work, and while we are with our guides doing what we're doing and are connecting to their higher selves.
Yes.
Yeah. So the protocol we didn't write. It was wrote by the Spirit Release Academy. If they ever change it or amend it, we change ours to continue working under that academy. So
that makes
it's
sense.
they've just actually been out in America. They've just been in Wisconsin. Is that how you say it? Doing a psychic surgery course. One of the teachers has been out. But yeah, like I said, we've got a lot of American practitioners now. The academy is English based, but we have a lot of American practitioners joining the course. So
that's really neat. So when you're doing a remote clearing for a client, there's nothing that the client has to do prior to the session. Like they don't have to fast, or they don't have.
No. All we ask is that they read it properly and they follow the advice. And the advice is always about protection, and it's always about keeping yourself safe and in a good place. I obviously am a medium, but because I work with my friend who's also a medium, we swap roles. So we can both be a medium or a facilitator. If you train as a facilitator, you can only facilitate. But if you're a medium, you can do both roles. So if I facilitate, the client will come back to me because I sent the report out, and they will ask questions on it. And again, we will answer those questions because they need to understand the report, and they need to understand. But yeah, we haven't had any negative feedback.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We've had clients come back and have another one 6 months later. And then when we've talked through afterwards, it's because they didn't follow some of the protection stuff. But even the second clearing was nowhere near as bad as the first one. And so, and the only reason I say, come on, follow our advice is because I don't want people to keep paying out money. It's not about the money for me. It's about looking after yourself. But yeah, so it's one of the best things I've probably trained in.
That's wonderful. Is there like continuing education with that? Or
no, there is. The academy is expanding, so they've brought in a foundation course so that people that may not feel comfortable jumping straight in as a medium or facilitator can come in at a foundation level and learn about spiritual protection, learn about your guides, because not everyone knows who their guides are either. So that's, and there is I believe, something else in the pipeline, but we haven't been told yet. And you have a choice. When you qualify, you haven't got to stay at the academy. You can go out and work on your own. Well, I obviously do go out and work on my own, but I still sit under the academy and attend the meetings because it's good rapport for all the practitioners to have discussions if anything strange came up. But also we've got a lot of new students coming through the door that are in the process of qualifying, and those that have qualified can give tips and experience. So it's a really I'm not always one for conforming and following people, but with this, because it's such a good therapy on people, I've done it on all my children. All my children have grown up, but I've done it on all my children because there's areas where I knew my children needed some release work.
Right.
So it's not something I'm just doing on people. And I've had it done on me. That was done in my practice. So I let someone do it on me. So it's not something I'm going on, we must do. It's something that I truly have had done as well. I'm not saying, I'm very much, everything I do, I've had it done myself. Otherwise I wouldn't do it.
Yes. Jane, as we near the end of this episode, it's been such a pleasure, like getting to speak with you and learning just everything that you're doing and also your philosophies on spirituality. What advice would you give to the viewers and listeners who may not really know where to start when it comes to finding out what makes them who they are in the spiritual world?
Well, that's sort of easy for me because I run a development group. And I also teach one-to-one workshops, tarot readings and stuff like that. So I think first things first, go and find in your area if there is somewhere local to you that's like-minded people that are running some kind of spiritual group, and go and test it out and go and try it out. And not everyone fits in. So don't feel that, I don't fit in, or they're being, we've got to go and find our own little tribe, as everyone says.
Right.
But that would be my first advice. I know from talking to people online that they live in remote areas, so there's not a lot of choice. And I also know in certain regions, even in America, there's a lot where they can't be so open about their spirituality. And there are still some places in England like that. So when it's tough because you're in a remote area, I always say then look online, because there are lots of people now running online groups, podcasts like this. I'm actually looking at setting up a podcast myself in the future with my partner in crime, my other medium. But again, when it's online, just check it out, make sure you're comfortable, but also don't rely on somebody else to put you in a protective space. Learn your protection yourself. It's so easy to put yourself in a protective space. We make our group every week open up. We pick on somebody and say, right, you're opening up tonight. And we open the group up in a protective space and we close it down in a protective space.
Yes.
We do that online as well. And we do that in our clearings. We check that both medium and facilitator are now in a protected, have closed any portals. So you've just got to learn about your protection first. And it can be so simple. And then start sourcing where you feel comfortable. And if you can't go to a face-to-face place, then go to somewhere online, but make sure they're practicing. I always say to people, if you're not comfortable and your gut's telling you this isn't right, then you get out. Because if your gut's telling you that, listen to it. Because like we said, not everyone running a group or running a circle or doing anything is necessarily doing it with the best intentions.
Right.
And maybe they're not aware they're not giving out the best intentions. But if your gut's telling you get out, get out.
Yes.
There's plenty out there now, the internet, to be able to do things and follow things. So I would say do your research and start looking where you can go.
Yes.
Over here, we do things called holistic fairs. So we have like places we can go and people have set up stalls. So we, go and find something like that and have a little dabble and walk around and see what's going on. But it's little baby steps. I think people jump in a bit too quick sometimes and get a bit overwhelmed.
Yes, that is so wonderfully said, Jane. Jane, what if a viewer or a listener would like to get a hold of you and would like to learn more about what you do or schedule a session with you? Do you have any websites, social media accounts, or any other kind of contact?
I thought I'd sent one to your co-worker, but I've got my Facebook page is Jane Morton New Beginnings Holistic and Spiritual Therapies. A little bit of a mouthful because I work spiritually and holistically. So I've got that Facebook page. My website is on that Facebook page. It's under a little bit of construction at the moment because when I first put it up 10 years ago nearly, I've done a lot more different things and I've cut a lot of holistic-y stuff out to do the spiritual stuff. So it needs a proper revamp to show what I'm doing now. But yeah, my Facebook is under my name and my business name. So,
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Jane, for being a guest on today's episode. And thank you to all of you for listening and watching another episode of the Estrella Podcast. My name is Danielle Miranda. And don't forget, if you would like to learn more about the Estrella platform that's launching, please head over to estrella.chat. Thank you so much, Jane. And I hope that you have an amazing day.
And you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.